Public Works.
I don't know if that's good or bad.
Call the roll.
Commissioner Dodd?
Here.
Commissioner Cush?
Here.
Commissioner Nipper?
Here.
Commissioner Piercy?
Here.
Commissioner Sereno?
Here.
Commissioner Stevens?
Here.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Here.
Need to approve the minutes.
Approve the minutes for the last meeting.
I so moved to approve the meeting.
Second.
Made in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, first up, highway.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. Great.
I have for you tonight a resolution that Josh put together for me is to approve some additional right-of-way for the bridge we're going to put in on Gucci Ford. It's a state aid bridge project, and TDOT wanted to see that all the slopes wound up in the right-of-way, so we had to acquire a little more right-of-way. All that's been done. The property owners out there involved graciously donated their property, and we have a recorded plat. So we stop here on our way to the full commission for our private act.
Motion to approve. Second.
When you say Josh, did you mean Josh
McQuarrie?
McQuarrie?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you.
That's it.
That's it for me. Everything else goes that fast, you guys what's going on?
Take your whole crew with you.
Good evening.
Good evening. Got a tough act to follow, huh?
I know, right?
Can you make it that quick?
I'll try.
Well, that's up to y'all.
All right, so we'll start with building permits. We had a total of 312 building permits issued for the month of April. 59 of those were single-family dwellings. So we were down a little bit on single-family dwellings, up a little bit on commercial. Total revenue is $103,885, $103,885 or 85 for the month.
What was the value of your commercial?
Mhm.
You said that was up 7 buildings, 7 permits?
Mhm. We have several.
1.5 million, is that the valuation of all
Correct.
7 improvements?
Correct.
Thanks.
Mhm. Development tax, we had a total of $491,250 for the month of April. And zoning enforcement, we had a total of 169 inspections for the month.
I don't know whether I need to ask you or Doug, but you're first, I'm gonna ask you.
I don't know.
When a developer buys a piece of property and starts work on it and there's blasting involved, a lot of the developers farm this out to another company. Do we have any regulations for them that they have to go by, and who enforces that?
We do not. The state does. They
The
get
state
their
does it
blasting
all.
permits through the state of Tennessee, and the state fire marshal's office regulates it and inspects it and answers to complaints. So if there's any complaints or anything, if you have any constituents or anything and they want to email me or call me, I'll be glad to give them that information.
Thank you. I make the motion to approve the report as presented.
Second.
Can I add before I disappear, the environmental court, I know I've been harping on about it for about a year, is finally coming to fruition. We talked with Judge Eichscheid last Friday, and our first court date is going to be June 6th. We had initially have them set up for a half a day, a month, until we get a better idea of how many cases and stuff we're going to be heard, along with animal control, planning, their stormwater, Mac Nolan with solid waste for illegal dumping, and anybody else that wants to get. Who? Yeah, animal control, yeah. So we're excited about that. There is going to be a press release. Yeah, and the fire department too, fire
What would be
marshal.
an example of an environmental court case you would?
We would have, ours would be property maintenance, zoning enforcement, tall weeds and grass, junkyards.
Does this give you more authority, a bigger
Yeah.
bite? So it's an official
Yes.
court with a judge?
Yes. We've
hearing?
always had the ability to take them to court, to take them to general sessions court. It just, when we took them to general sessions court, we were heard in between, drug cases and DUIs and stuff like that. So our issues or our cases didn't have the urgency that the others had, so we just didn't have much luck in general sessions court. So we're excited, very excited. So our first court date, there is a press release coming out at probably end of the week, next week. Mac Nolan's got a PR girl that's working on that for us. And if you guys are all done with me, I'm going to slide down for a couple of seats here, because after Doug's done with his report, we're going to talk to you guys a little bit. It's on the slide here.
We have a motion, so.
Motion second.
To approve the report.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good evening, Commissioners. Good evening, Doug. Everybody's doing well. Actually, we have a number of things to talk about today, but before we get to the meat of it, we'll get to our normal reports that we give you. The first is the available lot inventory that you'll see on your iPads. You'll notice that on page 404, for the reported lot inventory, you'll see that the available lots has gone down to 614. About 30 or 40 lots or so went down this month. We didn't have a lot of subdivisions that were recorded, larger ones anyway. We had a lot of 1 or 2 lots that were reported. We don't reflect those in here, really just the anything 3 lots or greater is what we look at. But again, you see that we're still kind of hanging around that 600 to 700 range. We've been in that area really for the last year and a half now. So lots are being taken off, but we're getting new lots coming through when they're recorded. So that's kind of what you're seeing there. There's no questions on that. Moving to the rezoning report. We do have just one rezoning case coming before you. This is property located along Burnt Knob Road, right near the intersection of Burnt Knob and Veterans Parkway. This is by the North Boulevard Church of Christ. Information provided by the applicant indicates that they would like to construct a 16,000 square foot church to accommodate over 500 occupants. This would be the west campus of North Boulevard Church of Christ. They currently meet at the Farmers Market building over on Lane Agriport, and they've seen regular attendance around 350 people, so they're looking for a more permanent home for their church. This particular use falls under what we call a large community assembly classification, which is anything greater than 500 people. Small community assemblies are allowed by right. That's anything under 150. If it were 150 between that and 500, they could be a medium assembly, and they could go to the Board of Zoning Appeals. But they feel that they just rather go for the large now as they anticipate their growth continuing. They didn't see the point of going for a special exception just to have to rezone the property in 5 to 10 years. So they're just going for the whole rezoning request at this time. We alerted the applicant that other rezoning applications have been made in this area. We recommended that they pursue the institutional zoning, as the range of uses is a lot more limited than it is, say, for just a traditional commercial zone. Actually, this particular zone, institutional, we created it for large community assemblies, and we allowed them by right for that reason. We wanted to see these type of facilities in a more institutional type zone that was more tailored to those type of uses. So that's what they have done. There were several questions raised by the Planning Commission regarding this request, really just range from the allowable uses in the institutional zone, drainage issues, the status of the widening of Burnt Knob Road. After discussion, the Commission did recommend approval by a unanimous vote. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions about our rezoning report. And again, this is the only rezoning case we have coming before you next week. No questions, I'll make a motion to approve if you need approval.
Second.
Made and second. All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Before we get into our last item, I'm going to turn it over to KDP. And she's going to talk to you a little bit about a stormwater agreement.
I've got a contract with MTSU to complete our stormwater quality testing that we have to do per our stormwater contract with the state. So they're going to complete it over 3 years, and this contract just kind of spells out what they're doing, and I need permission for the mayor to sign it. The budget's already there, approved at least for this year's budget.
Katie, is this, we've contracted with them in the past, right?
Yes, yes, sir.
And is this typically, as I recall, kind of a summer deal for students to come and do stream evaluation, or is this a more intensive?
This is separate, so this is actually grad students that MTSU
Okay.
hires and does. My interns walk the streams as a visual. This is
A different deal?
a little bit different.
Okay.
This is testing the E. coli and the macroinvertebrates, the critters
Okay.
in the.
And approximately what's the cost of this?
It's on page 3 at the
Fine.
top for the 3 year.
16,000,
Okay.
Right.
right?
All right. So over a 3-year period?
Over a
right.
3-year period.
Right, and just for everybody, this is something TDEC requires us to do?
Absolutely.
So there's no running from this?
No. And I actually have asked them to do some of the source tracking on the agricultural streams that we're sure that are more cattle-based. And if we can prove that it's not human, we can take those off in the next 5 years
Okay.
with the submittal of this report. So it'll bring the cost down in the next 5 years.
Okay.
It's a very effective way to,
Yeah, so grad students then obviously get some credit, course credit
Yes.
for themselves too, for their majors, so it's a win-win in a way. All right,
I'll make a motion for approval.
second.
Made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, Katie.
Thanks, Katie.
All right, we have one last item to discuss with you tonight, which is why Tanya decided to hang around for a little bit. So we have Tanya here from Building Codes, and we got Mike and Mike in the back.
Come on.
Backup crew. Who are
You're invited.
going to stay in the back. So we're your sacrificial lambs for the day, apparently. Want to talk to you about a process we've been going through. We've been evaluating some software for what we call electronic plan review systems. This is something that we're all very excited to bring before you tonight. But before we get into the budget amendment that we're asking for, I just want to give you a little bit of history. This is something that we've been talking about really for the last couple of years. I started talking with Brian Robertson at OIT about this originally, and then started working with Mike and Tanya and myself, and Mike Curtis with OIT, and kind of walking through this process. We took a couple tours to some of the other localities in this area, Williamson County, Franklin, to look at some of the systems that they use and try to get an idea of how they handle electronic plan review. Essentially what this is, it's a system that allows applicants, allows engineers, surveyors, whatnot, to submit their plans to you electronically. Everything is pretty much done on an electronic platform. You're able to take in the submittals, you're able to do the plan review, send the comments back. Everything is done as an electronic basis. On top of that, there's also a public portal that can be added into this process as well, which is part of what we're talking about tonight, that allows either the developers themselves or their engineers, whoever, to track the status of their projects. So not only can it be used for just the plan review side of things, but can also be used for the codes side of things, for inspections, for issuing permits, and those kind of things. So it's almost like a cradle-to-grave kind of tracking system. When something is first submitted into our office, we know when it comes in. We can track when comments are due, who's done them, if there's some we're still waiting on. All that information is accessible by staff. It's accessible by other county departments who may or may not be in the same building as we are. Also from utility companies like CUD, Middle Tennessee Electric. And then ultimately all that information gets funneled into one spot and gets back to the applicants themselves. So it's a lot more efficient process than what we're currently doing, which is essentially just paper and pencil at this point. So after discussing this, looking at some of these others, communities in our area, I'm making a long story of this, and I'm sorry, but we sent out a request for proposals in mid-January of this year, and we opened bids on February 28th of this year, and Mike, being on the public purchasing committee, is aware of this. The range of prices that we got were kind of all over the map. We saw a minimum bid price of about $251,000, and this is for a 5-year layout. We'll get into that in just a little while. The maximum was almost $1.4 million is what we were looking at for that. The average bid price looking at those was a little over $733,000, just looking at them. We ended up getting 7 bids submitted to our office for our review. We spent the next several weeks reviewing those applications, and we narrowed the list from 7 down to 4. And some of the items we were considering were cost. For example, we eliminated the most expensive right off the bat just because there seemed to be other packages in there that provided more bang for the buck. We looked at the features. Some of them had very basic features. Others were more varied and more robust. Some didn't have all the different modules we were looking for, like code enforcement, plan reviews, those kind of things. And we were also looking at GIS integration. How does their system talk, if you will, with the existing GIS technology that we use? That's something that was very important, and which is why we had our GIS folks involved in this process from the start. So we had our shortlist interviews. We had those on April the 3rd of this year, and that was in our mezzanine meeting room. We essentially gave every firm that we picked, there were 4 of them, CityView, True North, IDT Plans, and MainStar were the 4 that we narrowed it down to. Each of them had about an hour and a half or so with questions and everything to kind of go through their presentations. We also invited members from the city of Murfreesboro and also CUD to attend the meetings, as both of them are looking at similar type software for their processes as well. All of those presentations we had were solid. We all thought that every one of them did a really good job. A few days after that, we did meet amongst ourselves as staff, planning, engineering, codes, and OIT, kind of sat down to discuss our thoughts. Based on that meeting, we narrowed it down to 2 firms, which was the True North bid and then the CityView bid. The bids themselves weren't a whole lot different as far as cost. There was only about $15,000 difference between the 2 bids. The options were comparable. The price tags were a little higher than we had anticipated, but they weren't a whole lot higher than what the average cost was that I was talking about a little bit earlier. And of those costs, they were both right around $900,000, $950,000 again for a 5-year layout. 60% of those costs in both the proposals roughly were in that first year, just with startup costs, as far as getting the software, getting all the processes taken care of, and all of those things. So really, year 1 was the big one, and then years 2, 3, and 4, or 2, 3, 4, and 5, excuse me. After that were just yearly maintenance fees after that. So we ended up discussing all this with Mayor Burgess and to get his recommendations on what we should do going forward. By that point, we were pretty much honed in on one particular bid, which I'll get to here in just a second. We had further conversations with that particular vendor, and just looking at the possibility of how we could appropriate some of these costs maybe over the duration of the 5 years, as opposed to try to doing it all at one time. They were really good to work with us on that. And also they were able to find some cost savings in that. We ended up shaving about $60,000 off the total bid price. The total bid price for the firm that we really liked, ended up being the True North bid, is just a little bit under $900,000, about $898,000. Again, that is a 5-year, that's not something we pay every single year. Again, more than half of that goes in the first year, and then it's broken down by just yearly maintenance after that. And that maintenance includes any upgrades to the system, any maintenance, the things that have to happen, something goes wrong, we can call them up and take care of those things. So it's inclusive of all of that. So we took this recommendation back to Purchasing Committee, and Purchasing Committee did approve our recommendation of the True North bid just last week, this past Wednesday, subject to us funding the request. So the budget amendment that you have here is the result of us working with Mayor Burgess and Lisa Nolan to figure out a way to determine the costs of this. Essentially what we're looking to do, rather than try to break it all out over multiple years as we had proposed, we decided after speaking with Mayor Burgess further and Lisa Nolan to just go ahead and try to get the amended appropriation into this year, current fiscal year's budget, by using some overage dollars that we have in the development tax, as well as some of the money that we already had budgeted in building codes and also planning and engineering. Along with that, you'll see on the budget amendment that our GIS department, they had some money left over, $70,000 from a flyover that they didn't need. It was extra money. And they've offered to have us use that as well for this project because they're very excited about the capabilities this has as well. So what you're seeing is this budget amendment is $332,500 being taken out of the development tax, added into the existing money, about $65,000 or so that we already have specifically earmarked for that, transferring in $70,000 from GIS and then an additional $25,000 from building codes. All of that would go into the first year startup cost, taking care of all those startups, and then from that point forward, the yearly maintenance would just come out of building codes' budget, which is about, not quite 100,000, like 97, I think, $97,000 a year. So that's what we're asking for tonight, is asking for your approval of this budget amendment. We know it's a lot of money. I've mentioned this before, you very rarely, if ever, see me ask for this kind of cash. In fact, you've never seen me ask for this kind of cash. But the reason we're asking for that, and the reason we're all here, is because we truly believe that this is the way that we need to move forward. With activity the way that it is going right now, and no end in sight at this point, this will help us with efficiency in our departments. We're already busting at the seams as far as trying to find storage space for a lot of our larger files, with the site plans and the plats that come in, and the construction drawings and everything on top of that. So we really feel that this is a game changer for us as far as how we go forward doing business. And ultimately, we're trying to, again, increase our efficiency, not just inside our own departments, but also for the public when they come in looking to do a project or anything like that. They'll be able to log into the system as well as just as a user, I guess, in a sense, and find out where their projects are. This will hopefully help free up time for staff to do other things in the office. So that's basically what we're asking for. Again, I know it's a lot of money. It's a lot to swallow, but again, this particular cost is just for the 1 year. It's not going to be this expensive year after year. And we've already been working with Mayor Burgess and Lisa Nolan regarding how to help pay for this in our future budgets. We talked this past Friday about some of the things we had in our upcoming budget that are probably going to be taken out, and that's we understood that was part of it, so we're fine with that. But
We're sacrificing some future needs because that's such a big ask now.
Yes.
Is that what I heard?
Yeah, essentially, it's what we're doing. Yes. Again, we really believe in this. We think this is really the way to move forward with our departments, especially when we think about the eventual reestablishment of our building, that was approved by property management. Eventually, almost we're all going to be sharing kind of the same space. It only makes sense for us to be sharing the same software and being able to track something again from cradle to grave. So I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Is it enough?
I'm sorry.
Is it enough? Are you getting, are you limiting yourself?
With this particular software
Yeah.
package?
I mean,
No.
I know that
We're not.
it's a big ask, and I think it's a significant need. And so in your efforts to soften the blow, are you asking for enough? Are you going to have any large hits in the future? Is there hardware that you're not acquiring now that you really need? Is there digitizing? Is there other stuff? So it's a two-part question. Is it enough, or are you sure you have enough anticipated in the next 4 years?
As far
You
as,
understand the question?
if I'm understanding, and Tanya, feel free to chime in, but as far as the software package is concerned, we're not the only ones in Rutherford County that would be using this software package. The town of Smyrna actually uses this as well for their building code side of things. So this isn't something that's foreign to us. At the same time, do I think that this is a very robust program that honestly, once we start getting it and moving forward with it, it has the potential for other departments to also. It's got fleet management capabilities and different things. So this is something that it could even help disperse those costs even more over time. But it's a very robust system. So I feel that we're definitely getting a lot of bang for our buck for this system.
And as far, sorry,
No, go ahead.
as far as how hardware is concerned, we have discussed with OIT and GIS and stuff, and the company that's supplying the software to make sure that we weren't going to be hit with major hardware
Yeah.
purchases and stuff.
It
So we
needs to be
kind of
fully
cleared that up.
functional. That's
Right.
what I
Right,
mean. Make
yes,
sure you
yes.
have enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we checked with the server size and what they're going to need to run the system. So OIT's already chimed in on that. And they're
Do we own the data?
The data, whenever, regardless of what contract we went with, that was something we spoke about at the very beginning amongst ourselves, that we wanted to make sure that we put something in a contract that said the data belongs to us, and that we're able to retrieve it in such a way that we don't have to have some sort of third-party software to read it should we ever go in a different direction.
All right, and to follow up with the Commissioner's question, the 898,000 gives you the ability for planning department to house plans and for building, well, I guess the nodules would be for planning, for building codes, for in the inspection side, for zoning enforcement side, stormwater, and then not included, but has the ability for fleet management.
Correct.
So Matt could tap in.
Correct.
But that would be an extra
additional-
charge.
right, That'd be additional cost for that,
Right.
that's right.
Have you looked at the fleet management package?
We have not.
Do you have any idea what the cost of, just guessing? Or is
I
it too,
couldn't even make
you
a
hadn't
guess.
looked enough to
No.
even make a guess? Okay.
That wasn't something we were really pursuing, so I didn't really look too much into
All
it.
right.
Is there any chance that this might keep you from needing extra help in the future?
There is a chance. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say I'm never going to ask for another planner, or I'm sure Tanya and Mike aren't going to sit here and say we'll never need another codes person. Especially when it comes to the inspections and things, there's always going to be the need for boots on the ground. It may help from the administrative side. It may help defray some of that. Maybe kind of put that off a little bit. But if we keep growing like we're growing, at some point we're going to have additional people. But
You made the comment that Smyrna was going to use
they are
use it.
for their building codes.
Will they contribute anything toward it?
No, because we'd be a different, I guess, customer, if you will, with the firm versus Town of Smyrna.
They're not attached to the
Correct.
They've had theirs in
module, they
place.
just use the same product.
Right, they use the same product. Now, they're tapping into the same data as far as the GIS goes. So there's an intergovernmental agreement for all the sharing of the GIS data. But as far as whether or not there be any cost savings, sharing the cost between Smyrna and Rutherford County, or like say Murfreesboro, City of Murfreesboro, they're looking, they actually are like this system as well. So they're thinking about going on, but they'd just be a separate client. We wouldn't have to pay for any of theirs, they wouldn't pay for any of ours, so there'd be no cost sharing there.
Doug, you might want to mention, there were some other local, or within Tennessee, cities and communities that were already on North Star.
Yes.
If you remember, you might
Right, well,
throw some names
yeah.
out.
Well, as far as True North and their the City Works program is concerned, again, Town of Smyrna was one of those users. We had our Mike Curtis, and he can speak more than this, but he actually also called Shelby County, Alabama.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And yeah, Mike Walbeck and log it in. You can talk about Johnson City too.
City View.
Yeah.
Hi. You got me up here anyways. We wanted to find a comparable sized customer of this software package through True North. And we found Shelby County, Alabama, which is a county to the southeast of Birmingham, of approximate same size as we are, with a lot of small municipalities within it, and one rather large municipality. And we talked to numerous staff members there from both their planning department and their GIS and their IT department, and asked them various questions about the implementation of the software versus the ease of use in daily activities versus how it integrated with their GIS, which was really important to us in the GIS area. And all of these were very favorable and glowing. And so that was part of our review of the process. We talked to them, and that they were also, and the reason we found out about the fleet management, they were just implementing this year their fleet management side of it for their public works and all of their vehicles associated with that. And they were very happy with how that process was going. And so that gave us the idea that maybe we need to think about that in the future beyond what we're doing here.
Where's True North located? Was it
True North actually located right here in Murfreesboro.
they in Rutherford County at
That's
7
correct.
Oaks Boulevard?
I'm sorry?
Are they out? They're in Rutherford County.
Yes,
Yeah.
right off of Memorial.
Oh, there.
Does this make folks like CUD and our engineering customers, developers, does it make it easier for them to communicate and send plans and transmittals back and forth?
Yeah, I believe
And to
it
view
does.
plans and things like that?
Yes, I believe it will. Now, with any new system that comes up, there's going to be a learning curve,
Right.
you know, from staff standpoint and also from the private sector standpoint. But I think ultimately, what we're seeing with this, once we work the kinks out, which,
Yeah.
you know, there'll be kinks, but once those get worked out, I think it'll be a lot more streamlined process.
Okay. One thing at purchasing that I cautioned the group, and I'll say it again for the sake of being on the record. As everybody here, the commissioners, remember, approximately 2 years ago, the county battled with some software issues from another department that got us into some trouble. Some new software was initiated that turned out not to be such a good working program that we ultimately had to pay for, that turned out to be a slight disaster. That being said, this group has done due diligence, and with the help of Brian Robertson, the head of IT, to really evaluate and to go through the proper steps and turning over all the rocks to make sure the county does not get into another situation where we approve or purchase something that is not thoroughly vetted. So I want to throw that out there for this group and the listening public, that I believe we've learned a lot from our last new software purchase, and
Well, we have a little more control over
we
this one.
we very much do, and this group has done a lot more due diligence than perhaps groups in the past.
One other question I had, about a year ago, we raised the fees and all that your office charged and got you up to a self-sustaining office. Will the expense of this per year offset that and keep you from being that way?
No, we'll actually still stay. Right now, we're able to handle the maintenance fee of $95,000 and still be under that.
So there's actually 4 individuals going to benefit from this, correct?
Well, departments. Well, I would say, I mean, you got planning, engineering. I mean, we're technically one department. Stormwater falls under us as well, even though it's budgeted separately, and then building codes. So, I mean, I guess it's ultimately 2 departments because we're, like I said, planning and engineering is technically one. But as far as department heads go, I mean, we got 3 separate department heads
It'd
here.
sound better if you said 4, then it would have been 200,000 apiece. That's where I was headed.
Yeah, sometimes I just keep my mouth shut, I guess. But I will say, if I could piggyback on something that Mike was just saying, when we first started going down this road, and this is before we ever even got together as all department heads and started talking about how we're really going to do this, I sat down with Brian Robertson about this, and I specifically told him that I did not want this process to become like that one that he was talking about. I think it's a strong presentation that they made, especially considering the fact that True North now, they're kind of over the umbrella, if you will. There's software like the CityWorks software, OnBase, which is the plan review module. It's all under that, but they're kind of coordinating things. But we already have that relationship with True North, and they have a staff member on board that specializes in the CityWorks software and getting it up and running. So we're pretty excited about that.
Okay, let's go back One more question. Knowing you for the many years I've known you, and you've come to budget, and every year you've asked for very little. And knowing the fact that this is a big ask, and I want to reemphasize what he asked a minute ago. Are you sure you're not cutting yourself too thin? Or not stepping up and asking for a little more to cover yourself for the next 4 years?
Well, every budget year, we're going to reevaluate and kind of see where we are. Like I said, this will never take the place of having to have extra planners in our office to help do some of the long-term things. What we're looking at here, even though we can build in processes for board zoning, appeal rezoning, and those kind of things, you know, our office is what we call the planning department. You know, that's what we're supposed to be doing, is planning. With growth happening the way it is, sometimes I feel more like a reacting director than I do a planning director, just because there's so much coming in that actually sitting down and doing some of the long-term work, it takes a backseat, unfortunately. Now, I'll never, like I said, I can't say I'll never be in here and asking for an extra planner, but that's going to happen regardless if we'll get this system or not. I don't think we're like cutting off our nose or anything just to spite our face, you know, to put it that way. But I think it's going to help us with the day-to-day activities and things, which is going to hopefully free up some time for us to look at some of these more long-term projects.
Do you envision this software requiring some other hardware?
No.
An additional station of some type where...
Something we have talked about when this gets up and running, of course, again, you know, there's going to be a learning curve involved. There are going to be people in the public who aren't you know, necessarily working with one of the larger engineering firms that would probably have more experience using this kind of a system over time, that they're going to walk in with a plat and say, hey, I need to submit this. And what I envision is having like a kiosk there where they could give us the plan, we could scan it for them, and then they could go ahead and upload all their information into the system from this public kiosk.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, there is that, but that's, you know, really just computer costs and software. That's not.
And the front end on that is very lightweight, so it'd be through a web browser. So it would not have to be an excessive
Which you have a
machine
scanner?
other than what they already have.
You'd have to have a scanner.
We have a scanner. We have two,
Do you have
actually.
a new, okay.
Yeah, we have.
But if they walk in with full-size sheets, you have full-size sheet
Yes,
scanner?
sir. Okay. We actually have two different machines that can do it. We have one that's a standalone that we've had for several years that actually gets use from our department, from, well, OIT will send folks over to use it. We also, the last big plotter that we bought also has a scanning ability to it, so we have backup. So
Right.
there's no issue there.
And if you, I mean, you can add modules, you can come back to budget any given year and expand it.
Yes.
To,
If we needed to, or if
To-
other departments wanted to
Yeah.
tap into the system, then yes.
or your kiosk, or your,
Well, the kiosk, I mean, that would just be adding another computer. That, you know, and like Mike was saying, you know, it's a
But there'll
web-based
be-
interface.
The amount of users that'll be available to it will be more than what we have in people that would be using it. So it will be well used and available to everybody that would need to use it. And as far as the hardware side, from the computer side of it, the storage capacity we currently have and the servers we currently have or are planning to add in the near future will be taking care of the hardware side of it, as far as the storage of the data and the...
it's our storage as opposed to cloud or third
Correct.
party.
That is correct.
Yeah,
That's what
and
I'm
looking
referring
at,
to. So
honestly...
we own it and
yeah.
store it.
Looking at some of these systems, the True North bid, they did a standalone system, you know, I say hosted, where is our
An
system?
on-premise.
On-premise, thank you. An on-premise system. There were some that did only a hosted system, where the data lived somewhere else. And then there were a couple firms that did both. They bid it both ways. We saw that the on-premise solutions were less expensive. That one I was telling you about, the 1.4 million, that was actually a hosted solution. So we decided, when we first looked at this, we were thinking, you know, a cloud-based hosted service might be better. But then after really looking at it and the cost involved, we determined that the standalone, the on-premise system was probably the route to go.
Okay. I'm going to make a motion. Make a motion that we approve the budget amendment for the startup cost for the electronic planning, permitting, and inspection software suite.
Second. I'll second
Motion made and second.
Commissioner Dodd?
it. Yes.
Commissioner Kush?
Yes.
Commissioner Nipper?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Thank you all very much.
Thank
We
you so
appreciate it.
much.
Thank you all.
Thank
Thanks
you,
for the
Bill.
diligence. I know it's taken years to.
And yeah, how fast, of course, let's say you get full approval and you have your money ready. How fast is your desire to implement?
Well, almost immediately. They would probably start with what they call the low-hanging fruit, get some of the easier processes going.
Right.
But I would say probably about in a year, roughly about a year, year and a half, we would have full capability at that point.
Okay. Takes that long?
Yeah. Well, just to get all the systems installed and the training is a big thing. And obviously, yeah, we need to make sure there'll be a learning curve from the staff. And
Part of the process is customization of the software to meet our specific needs.
Right.
And that's a big part of what you're paying for,
Yeah.
is to make it work for us and the way we need it to work.
So they have to sit down and interview you and see what your daily tasks are.
Yeah.
basically,
That's part of
that's
Yeah.
part of it.
learning what you really need.
Right. And they even made the comment that, of course, the timeline that they set out, they did say that, when you really start looking at the various processes, when you start comparing them amongst different jurisdictions, the processes themselves really are fairly similar. There are just probably little nuances here and there that have to change, so they'll already have a decent idea of what we want to do.
Yeah.
Just having to tailor it to our process exactly, so that'll just
So
take time.
even if it takes a year or 18 months, the good news is your updates are free with your 5-year
Well, as part of that maintenance fee every year, correct?
Yeah, so even, it's not like, whatever your start date is, you're going to get your updates because technology
Right.
changes so fast.
Exactly. And I think that was a question that was brought up at purchasing, if I remember right.
Yeah.
Someone had asked that, in 5 years is going to be obsolete, and the question would be no, or the answer rather would be no, because they're constantly updating it as they go.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
Thank you again.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Matt, come on up. Solid waste landfill.
How are y'all today?
Good. Why is it you always get to go last?
Joe Frank loves seeing me longest. Isn't that right, Joe? As usual, we'll start with the landfill report. And I need to do a little explanation on the report, because I had to call my lady that does the report and get her to explain it to me. Of course, we don't take construction demolition debris anymore. All we're taking is brush and tires. When we were taking brush and tires, we were averaging, because we hit almost $800,000 income in 8 months. It's almost $100,000 a year, or a month, that was their income. As you can see on that report, that our income down there at the bottom was $3,376. So we've taken a big decrease there. But also you can look in there that it's a lot of free. So the residential brush, 260 tons, and commercial brush was 112. And then you had a little bit of county, a little less than 6 tons, and the city was about a half a ton. If all that had been paid for as it came in, would have been $11,372. Instead, $3,376 is all we took in. So we gave away 71% of what came in. We need to quit giving stuff away.
So what do you propose?
That everybody pays. Now, of course, the stuff that the county takes in themselves, we wouldn't charge ourselves. The city of Murfreesboro, that's probably Parks and Rec or somebody like that, it's a half a ton. So, and that's not a decision that has to be made tonight, but that's one that we need to look at. And with the solutions that we're going to be looking at in the future, solid waste is going to cost money, and we're going to have to step up and pay for things as we go. But brush and tires is the two things that we still have to take. City of Murfreesboro is Joey Smith sitting back here with me. I'm asking him to come up and help me here toward the end, but he's the solid waste director for the city. And they do a lot of grinding of brush. They can't take anything over 8 inch in diameter. So if somebody has large logs, they have no place to go. So they bring them to us and we burn them. So we'll need to continue that process until we have a better solution somewhere else. But it doesn't need to be free. Any questions on that?
You're still charging a little something for tires though, right?
Tires, yes. Tires cost us $65 a ton to dispose of. It's the recycling cost. That's what our agreement is. If you're a resident and you bring 10 tires off the rim to the landfill, you get to dispose of those at no charge. The 11th tire we start charging. So we have to keep up with that. The other thing that we're doing that we need to stop doing is we're taking tires at 3 different convenience centers. Craner Road, Eagleville, Weekly Lane, and then at the landfill. So basically 4 corners of the county have a place to take tires. What happens with those tires is we'll take up to 4 off the rim. And we actually keep a list. You know, you're supposed to write down your name and your driver's license number, your street address, and try to keep up with who's coming and how often you're coming. And we have that information, and you can go through and pick some of those if they come almost twice a week with 4 tires. So that tells me it's more of a commercial venture or a home-based business or something like that. But the way we deal with that is the litter crew, and usually it's on a Friday, they'll go to Weekly Lane and get a trailer load of tires. Sometimes have to go back to Weekly Lane to get the rest of the tires. So we get anywhere from 150 to 200 tires a week out of Weekly Lane. And then that same day, they'll either go to Eagleville or Craner Road to get tires. Eagleville usually collects somewhere in the neighborhood of 25 to 35 tires a week. Craner Road is maybe 20 a week. You know, so we've got the investment of the litter crew driver, the van, the trailer, and of course we have inmate labor. But, you know, that's a cost. You know, so we need to look at that. And now I know in the past we've had it said, and it'll be said again, they'll wind up on the side of the road. They're on the side of the road now.
Who decided that I get 4 free tires a year or a month or
that was in
whatever?
place when I came here. So now at the convenience center, it's four tires a day. That's the only regulation there is. So if you want to bring 4 tires every day of the week, well, there's no way we can stop you from doing that.
Okay. So does this committee have the ability to change those regulations and send them up to full commission to
Yes.
vote on? Okay.
And that may not be something we want to do tonight. We may
No, I'm just
think about it and try
thinking
to
out
line
loud.
it out. But,
Thinking out loud.
they were talking about the environmental court, where that's going to help us. Is state law is a tiered system. If you throw out this pin, that's a tier 1. Then it goes up to tier 4. There's on Shacklet Road, right near 840, there's a little, they started a street and it goes 300 feet at best and stops. There's a 16-foot fiberglass boat sitting there, somebody dropped off. That's tier 4. So if we could find out who did that and go to the environmental court, that would be a maximum $2,500 fine, 60 days in the workhouse. And if Mr. Piercy was one that contacted us and said, Mr. Bush put it there, Mr. Piercy gets that fine.
Do I have to prove it?
To prove it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. But now wait a minute. That boat will have a serial
I've
number
got
written
hanging
somewhere.
It's on the back, and we're going to look, but it's old enough that it's probably whoever actually bought it.
Yeah.
And the tracking of how many times it's sold.
Yeah.
More than likely what's happened is it doesn't have a motor on it, so I don't know if they took the motor off or not, but somebody bought the boat and the trailer wanting a trailer, and they deposited the boat there.
Before we get too carried away here, the commercial people that sell and mount tires, keep tires, what do they do?
We have 11 tire trailers throughout the county with large tire dealers. And so when you go buy your tires, they put the tires on the trailer and they contract with Liberty Tire for transportation. Liberty Tire rents them the trailer and they charge them a trucking fee. So Liberty Tire comes, picks up your load, there's a manifest that we provide to go along with it that gives us the tire count. It is weighed, and you can take the tire count versus the weight and see if it's pretty close to right. We pay for that disposal.
Does the tire people not charge a disposal fee
They do.
when
All
you
right.
buy?
All right, let me explain that. You're right.
They do.
It's $1.35 per tire. A lot of them charge more than that because they're covering their transportation and all that stuff with it. If the tire dealers are doing it correctly, and we're very fortunate here in Rutherford County that our tire dealers do the right thing. They take that $1.35, they keep 10 cents. They send $1.25 to the Department of Revenue. Department of Revenue keeps 25 cents. They send the $1 back to us. And that's what we pay our tire recycling fees with. And we're fortunate that a car tire, we charge $1. $65 a ton. Well, car tire doesn't hardly cost $1 to recycle. It's closed. It's pretty close. And then the big truck tires should cost about $4. It's only got $1 on it. But there's enough small tires that you get that little fraction of money left over offsets what you're losing on the big truck tires. So Rutherford County is one of the very few counties in the state of Tennessee that the tire program actually works.
Where are these tires coming from that the individuals bring? Why don't they leave them at the tire center?
Very good question. Now, you can buy tires on Amazon and pay somebody to mount them, take them back home with you, and then I don't know how, something like that is the only thing I can think of. But to have that many is the problem. Now, our other problem, the ones that we find on the side of the road, Joe used to be at the highway department, I'm sure y'all found them big piles, is that tire process does not include used tire dealers. So you've got a lot of small dealers that sell nothing but used tires. They don't collect the $1.35, they don't return it in, those tires are not eligible. I've tried my best, and I was on the tire task force about 8 years ago, and all tires need to be part of that program. No, used tires are not. Now, we've got one big major tire dealer here in town that sells a lot of used tires, and he puts the tires on a trailer and sends them. So he sends in his money like he's supposed to the DOR, and toward the end of the year, he sent more tires than he sent money in for. So all we have to do is call the man and say, we need some money, here you go. I mean, he does the right thing still, but he's going through that process. You know, so the used tire dealers are the ones that I think wind up on the side of the road. When there was snow on the ground, I think it's Winrow Road, they had to send a crew because somebody dumped a load of tires in the road.
It was a dump truck load, wasn't it?
Yeah. And then that same week, I went to another location that was just right off of 840, a dead end road, and similar thing had happened there. You know, so people need a place to go with them, but we can't keep taking stuff for free. Any more questions on the landfill side? All right, let's move on to recycling centers / convenience centers. I did a little calculation that I just want to know myself. If you look at the report, that front page of the convenience center report shows you the totals in tons. For the compactor loads, that's 175 truckloads of compacted trash. And for the open top containers, it's 634 truckloads of open top trash. That's 809 loads of trash, and then I went back and calculated, because we don't report to you on these things, the recycle loads. There's 207 loads of recycling stuff. So we're actually down on recycling loads a little bit this month and up on the trash loads a little. So that's at 20%. Normally we're running about 27%. We are shorthanded on drivers. So there's been 2 weeks that we had to go to extended work hours, which means basically a 50-hour work week. So this past month, we hauled those loads, and it took 1,992.75 truck hours to get that done. That's not payroll hours, that's just the productive time on the truck. So when it's broken down, those type of issues, that doesn't count. This is normally a slow time of year for us, but it's not slow right now. Also in our centers, our residents have gotten more bold than they used to be. Had 2 center attendants come in today that they finished their shift Sunday and came in today and turned in their keys. They're done. that they're not gonna take the cussings and the mouthings and all that kind of stuff anymore. You know, so hopefully the environmental court can help with some of that. You know, at least, you know, those type of people, at least get them banned from there. Any questions on the convenience center / recycle centers?
I'll make a motion to approve this report.
Second.
Motion made, second to approve the report. All in favor?
Aye.
And I'm not sure what order they have them listed on yours. My next one is litter grant. Is that what y'all have next? Litter grant is a grant that comes every year, and it's from TDOT. And it's, again, this year is $113,200. That litter grant has Mimi Kiesling in it. She's our education recycle coordinator. And it has 2 full-time litter crew drivers, and then all the supporting things that go along with those. The vans and the trailers and the porta potties and the materials to use to pick up the trash on the side of the road and the trash bags and Mimi's stuff. So this is, again, a contract that needs to be executed, and a motion made where the mayor can send it and sign it and all those things for fiscal year 18-19, July 1 of 18 through June 30 of 2019.
So moved.
Second. Motion made, second. All in favor?
Aye.
What we do with that litter grant is Kathy in my office every month has to send in basically a bill to them for us to be reimbursed. So it's salaries and benefits, and then the cost of repairs on the equipment and purchases and things like that. When she finished that and sent it in for this month, the salary line items, like Mimi's, we've used it. The litter crew drivers, I think she said there's about $3,000 left in it. There's about $4,000 left in the maintenance side of it to finish this year. So the litter grant does not cover that entire budget, but it helps a lot. I don't know if it's on y'all's report or not, the Tennessee landfill remaining life survey, and I sent an email to y'all yesterday as well. Had to send yours a second way. The first one came back to me. But what I wanted you to see on that is the new report is Middle Point landfill has 8 years and 11 months of life, and that's at them taking 3,952 tons a day. And then the other one that I picked off of there is the next closest one to us is Cedar Ridge landfill has 12 years and 2 months at 2,190 tons a day. So landfill in our future is going to get further and further away. But that's the reason I wanted y'all to see that. Now, the county commission made a vote last month on the landfill issue and not to expand. That's a good vote. You know, a lot of people, Mac's going to be mad now. I'm glad you made a decision because it narrowed it down. But that's going to put us looking at doing something other than landfilling in our future. And we can talk more about that here in a little bit, if you'll allow me to bring Joey Smith up here with me.
Since we have no representation from the mayor or the vice mayor, does this mean we won't start discussion on that till the new mayor takes office?
We're already working with that. Joey Smith with the city, Paul Boyer with the city, Mike Brannon with the city, Jim Crumlin with the city, Jeff Davison with the county, and myself are what we call the working group. And we actually had a phone call conversation with GBB yesterday. A decision has been made, so that narrows down what we have to do. So we've got them working on what our next steps are. And then transfer stations, the maximum flexibility option is pretty much where we're going, where we need to go. And a waste authority or some kind of utility district, something to that effect.
I heavily encourage you on the waste authority to keep Rutherford County in control, one way or the other. If we don't, we'll be back just like we were.
And when I mentioned that to Harvey, he said there's ways that it can be written to do that. He didn't say how.
It will need to be, because we're 30 years in the dark, we don't need to go back.
Right.
We need to have a control and vote on it.
Let's do some budget amendments, if you don't mind, and then we'll get Joey, we'll discuss exactly that a little bit more. Should be 2 pages of budget amendments. All of them combined is $60,319. All of these budget amendments are coming from within solid waste. The first budget amendment is for motor vehicles. We had $2,419 left over in the convenience center line budget on trucks that we want to move to the litter crew budget to buy a trailer. We've already purchased the new vans, and we put out for bids a custom-built trailer to do what we need to do, and we only had one company that would actually bid on it. Everybody else thanked us for letting us have the information. But with this budget amendment added to what we have, it's $27. It will wind up with $27 left over after we purchase the trailer. But that's moving from one budget to another one. You'll go to the next one, or y'all have a question?
How much your trailer cost?
$8,950, I think.
Go ahead.
Second line item is litter crew gas. We need more gasoline money, $1,200, and we're taking that from the landfill gasoline line item. And then the rest of these are within the same budgets. Out of the convenience center budget, communications, we need another $4,000 to finish the year. That's coming out of the advertising line item. For maintenance, repair of vehicles, we need another $10,000. Fuel maintenance, or diesel fuel, we need $25,000, and tires, we need $7,000. That's a total of $42,000. That's going to come out of the asphalt line item. Utilities, we need $2,000 more. That's going to come out of the fencing line item. Out of the other waste collection, which is our Haley Road recycling budget, we need another $6,000, and that's going to come out of site development out of the same budget. That's going to be paying for clear and colored glass recycling and plastic and single stream recycling. The recycling company has gone up on the processing fees. And then utilities at the landfill, we're going to need another $2,700. So we're going to take that out of the maintenance and repair of equipment and equipment machinery parts combined to come up with $2,700. So we're not asking for any new money. We just need to move it and get it in the right location.
Well, I move that we approve all the budget requests.
Second.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Kush?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
And y'all mind if I invite Joey to come up?
That's awesome.
Come on up, Joey. Sometimes the city and the counties butt heads in battle.
Joey, did he just call you?
Hey, I've been calling once today, so that's not the first, that's the kind of stuff.
I started almost 10 years ago, and I don't know how long I had been in my job until I needed to find out something about how the city did whatever they did. So I called Joey, and he made the comment, that's the first time solid waste director from the county's ever called me.
Wow.
But ever since then, if we need one another for anything, we make the phone call, and we try to make it happen. And as long as it's the best thing for the residents, then we can, team up and work together. So solid waste has been working together pretty well. What I would like to recommend, of course it doesn't have to be done again tonight, is that we, the county commission, generates a memorandum of understanding and sends to the 4 cities in Rutherford County, and get a memorandum of understanding from all 4 of them that the 5 governments will work together on a solid waste plan and fund it. If any of the cities choose not to participate, that's fine. They're still part of the county, so we'll have to do something with it. but then they have no voice. That's kind of where I'd like to see us go with that. That can be the start of our planning together. Figure out who's going to be a team player and who's not.
So those four cities you mentioned, and just for the record, would you name those?
Murfreesboro, Smyrna, Laverne, and Eagleville.
And are you going to give them a deadline to respond?
I'm hoping y'all are.
Okay.
And of course, what you have to remember is the county, our process is for anything that I do usually starts here with you guys. And Thursday night we'll go to budget, the following week it'll go to county commission, and we can figure out what we're going to do. The cities meet a lot differently from the way the county does, so to get an MOU agreement may take actually 2 months, but when you once get the first vote in the first committee until you get the last one. So to get that understanding is going to take a little while. But it lets us know where we're going to stand and who our partners are.
Do you already have the memorandum of understanding essentially drafted?
Yes, we currently have one, and then we did an amendment, if you remember, last month for a second one, and that was between the city of Murfreesboro and Rutherford County. Laverne actually agreed to do that, but it's never gone through county commission. Smyrna has not done anything. As far as I know, Eagle has not done anything officially, but they've always said they would participate. So we need to find out who the player's going to be. And then we can make some better decisions on who we're worried about and how we're going to take care of things. Another thing that the city is doing, they're putting it in their budget, in Joey's budget for next fiscal year for $7.5 million to build a transfer station. That's roughly half the money that it's going to cost. So we're going to need to do an agreement to do the same thing, to where if it's going to be Murfreesboro and Rutherford County teaming up to do it, that's one way to do it. Is it going to be a solid waste authority that does it for the whole county? That's another way to do it. Those are some decisions that need to be made. I called the finance director before I came here to find out what a penny is worth, a property tax penny. Today's property tax penny is $681,873. So if we were going to split that cost with Rutherford or with the city of Murfreesboro, we would need 11 pennies. If we have a waste authority doing all this for us, and it's going through property taxes, then that'd be 22 pennies. So
Well, that would be if it was all one cost up front, wouldn't it? Like, if you bonded and paid for it over time, you wouldn't need that much tax.
Involvement, right. Yeah, you're right. But in all, that's what it would cost.
He's trying to scare me.
But that would be just to build it. That's not to operate it and all that kind of stuff. So for us to work together is the only way we're going to get through this. And we also need to look at private-public partnerships on some things. So if we have a transfer station that we own, and I think we should own it, that way we have some control over it, then we probably would have it privately operated.
Why? The reason why is like Davidson County, they only have 3 options where they can take their garbage. Either to Republic's 2 transfer stations or to Waste Management. So they're basically held hostage and cannot bid out to the lowest bidder where they make and dispose their trash. They're trying to do a zero waste initiative in Davidson County. Well, when you only control 11% of it, and plus it's a fantasy anyway, there's no way that you'll ever get to zero waste. That's just a pie in the sky, fantasy island type situation. But if we own and operate it, at least we can tell them what time they're going to be open and where we can control where it may go. It may go to Camden, it could go to West Memphis, it could go to Hawkins County up in East Tennessee, it could go to Alabama, or it could go to Kentucky. When the decision was made, which I agree with Mac. I'm glad that we made a decision. We only have two possibilities now of solid waste in Rutherford County. That's the maximum flexibility, that's a transfer station to the north and a transfer station to the south. And then there's waste to energy. Right now, waste to energy and with the amount of tonnage that we control is not going to be a viable solution in the next 10, 15 years. We just don't have the trash unless you want to become a regional facility, because most mass-based burns take in a little over 3,000 tons a day, just like what Mill Point's taking in right now. So
one of the large problems with a mass burn facility is
Hang
what...
on, so Steve's question was back to private. Did you get, we've already gone to burn, and you were,
Now, are you saying
we want to own that.
we own and run it, or you're gonna contract it out to somebody like Republic?
We could do it either way.
Right.
But what are you saying?
I think we would be better off to contract it out.
Right.
But own the facility.
On the facility, the reason being is right now between the tonnage that Mac picks up in Rutherford County and the tonnage that we pick up, you combine, it's a little over 80,000 tons in a year. That's almost comes down to about 25 to 30 tractor trailers loads going out to a point A, B, or C, wherever it goes. Right now, Mac cannot hire anybody hardly at $16.50 or whatever. Us trying to fill 25 tractor trailer slots and trying to get a load down to Lewisburg or to Camden, you're only talking probably anywhere about 3 loads per day, if that's possible with the new DOT regulations, or 2 loads a day. Well, trash has got to be off the transfer station floor every night, period, state law. So you're going to have 25 tractors plus 25 trailers, and that's not even the ones that you're going to have to stage in there, fill up so that they come in and just railroad them around. So I don't think that the cost from a transportation standpoint is worthwhile us doing it. That's the reason why you factor it out and you bid that out, but you own the facility, because there's one thing about it. Rutherford County on the convenience center side, they're still picking up trash. There's not a landfill open on Sunday. Closes at 12 on Saturday, the landfills do, because of the way that they're having to cover. So we're going to have to combine all that and mash it into a shorter time frame. And if we can control it, at least Mac will be able to have some flexibility in what time we operate.
Maybe the only transfer station in the state of Tennessee that's open on Sunday.
Right.
You said 80,000 ton, is that per day?
No.
In a year.
Per
In
year.
a year's time? 80,000 ton.
Yes.
Yeah. What the,
At present rate right now.
what the city curbside collection plus the recycle centers combined is a little over 80,000 tons a year that we control. Now, out of the county itself is closer to 300,000 tons, but that's private haulers, that type of stuff that we don't control.
You base the number there on 25 trucks and trailers. Is that one trip per day, or is that multiple
Depends on
trips a
which,
day?
it depends on which way you go, which way you go.
Depends on how long your haul is going to take.
I mean, because the haul, I mean, if you go to Lewisburg, right now, just to give you an example, last week, my 10 garbage trucks going up to Middle Point landfill, on the average, we go twice a day. On Friday and Thursday, we couldn't. We averaged 1 hour and 57 minutes dump time. So if you take that into consideration, you know, if we had a transfer station south, I could be in and off there in about 30 minutes. Then they could take it to Lewisburg, which what's about a 95, 85, about a 95-minute drive by car, but the tractor trailer's going to be a little bit longer, so give it a 2.5 hour turnaround. So those are the things that you got to factor in. Is where are we going to take from the transfer station to a destination? Because landfill's not going to go away. We have moved the landfill to a different point.
Yeah, we would still use that transfer station and take that trash to Middle Point as long as it's still open.
Because we have free disposal as long as it's there. Just doesn't matter. It just, we get to save, because right now Mac can tell you on his pulls, gone from 7 to 3.5 just because of the weight at the landfill.
So what that would do for us, if we had a transfer station tomorrow, that big tractor trailer truck would be sitting in line with, 20 to 22 tons of trash on it instead of our truck sitting in line same amount of time, open top 2.5 tons, compactor 10 tons. So our trucks would be out hauling trash and dumping it at transfer stations, or we wouldn't actually need a whole lot more drivers. Does that answer your question?
Well, I have a lot of questions.
Okay. Well, and we need a lot of questions asked, because we've got to make a decision on what we're going to do. And it needs to be the best decision that we could possibly make for the residents of this county that live here today and are still coming. We're looking at a whole lot larger population in the next 30 years or whatever that number is. So we've got to figure out, how we're going to try to manage that and go ahead and gear up for it.
And the other thing about the transfer station, and we're looking at the transfer station being almost a transfer station side and a quasi-recycling side.
Right.
Because right now, Mac's having to call all the recycling either goes to Caristar, Upland Garden, or plastics and glass go all the way to Nashville. If you have a wreck on 24 and you're down for 4 hours and they have a fatality, you're sort of stuck. And that driver's not going to be able to do anything because you can't. It's a little hard to turn a garbage truck around in the median and go across like some of your yahoos like to do. But if we have that capability, then we just put that on the tractor trailer and then we can take that to Nashville. That saves Mac and all of our recycling, possibilities right there too. So there's the transfer station as a whole. Yes, we're looking at a 1,200 ton a day facility, but it's also going to be a dual purpose recycling.
This garbage going back on these transfer trailers, will it be compacted or ground or anything so you can get more weight?
Normally what they do with it is an average compactor coming out of our convenience center weighs about 10 tons. So if you dump 2 of them and put them on that tractor trailer truck, you've got almost all the weight you're going to get on it, but not the volume. So you would have to mix some of that heavy trash with the light open top trash to get a 100-yard trailer full and 20 to 22 tons on it. That way you're maximizing your load. So the operator that's loading those trailers has to pay attention to what he's doing to try to get it maximized. And then what they always do is when they pull them out from under the tunnel, they put them on the scale. And if there's more room in there, they'll take the backhoe bucket and pack it down and try to put some more in it. Or if there's too much weight in there, they'll take some of it out.
With what comes from our compactors to the transfer station, will it not be recycled through, or would it be left compacted?
Now, when we dump it out, it spreads out. It doesn't stay compacted. It doesn't come out in a bale type form. And then as far as recycling, there's an opportunity to do that, but you got the safety value of manhandling and personnel in there with trucks moving and everything else. So I'm not sure what we'd do there. What he mentioned on recycled loads is like our single stream load it comes out of our front loader truck, that we pick up at the schools, so that could go, and it's a lot of plastic, so the single stream and plastic can actually go together. We like trying to send them separate, but a load of a 100-yard tractor trailer load of plastics is probably not going to weigh 5 tons because you got a lot of airspace. So we need to look in the future for a recycle facility that actually does balers to where you can bale that stuff. And then you're going to have to store it, you're going to have to find markets for it and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Combined, y'all do 80,000 tons. How many cubic yards is that? Is there a general conversion you can use?
It's usually 4 tons per yard, and that's a normal conversion.
I think so. It's been so long since.
That would be on household trash.
Right.
All right, let's go back to your original request, which was the memo of understanding for the 4 cities. You've got a draft form. What do you need us to do at this point?
Well, what I'd like for y'all to do is think about it.
Yeah.
And just like Steve said, have more questions. And what we want to try to do is when we put this memo of understanding out, it says what it says, and it's not really much wiggle room or argument room or anything else. We want it worded to where it actually says what we need it to say. And we want it worded in a way that the other cities, when they read it, they understand what it says and either agree or don't agree. You know, but we need to have that decision from all the other cities just to find out who our partners are. Now, also in long term, Joey and I have a meeting on the 24th with the Greater Nashville region, and we'll be our third meeting, I think. And that's from Clarksville all the way down to us, and the 13 county region is trying to come up with a regional solution for the entire region. If that comes to pass, then a mass burn waste facility may be feasible because you got enough garbage. Landfill possibility, Bi-County landfill on the northern end. It's up there close to Clarksville. And I think in that report they've got like 70 years of life space. So if you're using it, a lot of the garbage to make energy out of, then you're going to shorten the garbage that goes to landfill. The big downside to a mass burn facility is it either creates steam or electricity. Electricity is cheap. So you sell it back to the grid, you're really not getting anything for it. So you're going to have to do all your operational costs coming on your disposal end, unless you find a big, really big or multiple large users that are on the same property. Because what we've been told is you can't sell electricity across property lines. You know, the electric companies can, but if we do something like that, we can't. You know, so when on the phone yesterday with Harvey, you know, the waste away type solution, where they grind up and make a fuel source out of it. And then Commissioner Stevens has this pretty large size Energy Hog building that he's got. He buys the generation part of it, then we're selling him the fuel to make his own electricity. We're not selling him electricity. I mean, that's something that's possible. So you'd wind up having a lot of those individuals that would have to, you know, partner up and buy the fuel for it. You know, so there's a lot of different things that we can do. We just got to figure out something and get it started.
So you emailed the memorandum to us?
No, I have not. But we've got the one that we, was it last month or the month before, when we extended the contract with a new memorandum of understanding with the city. So we can basically, the wording in that actually does work, I think. But it's something that we need, you know, everybody to look at. And of course, our legal teams have looked at it. The city's legal and the county's legal.
Okay.
Now, Mayor Burgess, if he were here, would tell you really quickly that the city of Murfreesboro and Rutherford County doesn't need to support other cities.
Right.
Can't make them, can you? We can't make them pay, can we?
Yeah.
We can or we can't?
We can't.
Special tax districts.
Special property
I
tax
thought it
district.
was wrote in where the county had to take care of the cities.
They do,
They do.
but the city has to pay for it. Through a special property taxing district, you can provide curbside collection for every resident in the city, whichever you choose. And I think in our future, we need to exercise that and not only do it in the cities, but also do it in every subdivision with more than 40 or 50 homes. Because the convenience center, recycle center style of dealing with trash is not going to work when we double the population. Because you're not going to be able to build a new one. Just nobody's going to want one.
You can't double charge people living in a subdivision. They're already paying property tax.
But yeah, it'd be an addition to the property tax just for a solid waste fee.
It's like a lot of the private people outside the jurisdiction, even Smyrna. They contract with BFI, Red River,
Waste management.
Waste Management. There's probably about 16 to 18 haulers in Rutherford County right now. They're paying anywhere between $25, $30 a month just to have the trash pickup.
And if you run into one-armed bandits like the city does, which not everybody does, but if you divided into 6,000 homes sections, that's about a week's route for one truck. So if you bid it out that way, the small mom and pops still have an opportunity. If you bid City of Smyrna all out at one time, you're only gonna get the big boys. They're the only ones that can make that much investment to do that. But it would be better if the cities would do that on their own. Now, the kind of piggybacking on what Steve said, Smyrna, Laverne, and Almaville, last time I ran the numbers, is 51% of what we do, convenience center-wise. You know, that's Smyrna's population, Laverne's population. Almaville is actually an Arrington address, but it's close to Smyrna. So we spend a lot of time up there taking care of those. The next two busiest centers is Walter Hill and Rock Crusher, north side of Murfreesboro, south side of Murfreesboro. So double taxing, you know, he provides curbside collection, but he doesn't provide recycling, he doesn't provide for the bulk. So the city of Murfreesboro people come to us. They go to Rockville. They go to all the centers depending on which one's closer to them. You know, so I understand what you're saying, but to figure out a way that they have to have some money tied up in it too.
Actually, we do pick up bulk, but because our center's closed all the time, they go to you.
Right. And there's ways to doing that. You know, there's pay-as-you-throw type systems. But please, please, guys, don't put us collecting money at the centers. We've got some centers out in the middle of nowhere, and we'll get somebody hurt or killed over $100. We don't need to collect money.
No. That's the worst thing you can do.
But what I'm hoping to get from this committee each month is y'all think about it. And if you have questions, I'm not going to be able to answer all the questions, but the working team, we can go through our consultants and say, hey, here's what we're thinking, or here's what they're asking, you know, how we're going to fix this, solve this, or what direction we're going to take. We've got the time to come up with something. You know, when Harvey met and talked with the SWAC committee on February 27th, the number was 10. Now it's less than 9. Joey and I don't believe it's that long, but that's just our opinion. You know, so we've got to make some decisions, but we don't have to make them today. But we can't wait 8 years from now to make them.
I feel like they can make it as short as they choose to. They're bringing 300 trucks a day in today. They can start bringing more if they chose.
I drove a truck Monday, last Monday, not
You're
yesterday.
already here all night. I have to go home.
And I asked her at the scales how many trucks. 400.
Move adjourn, ready to go home. We sit here all night.
Can you do,
Well, I'm glad he can do something.
can we do mandatory recycling without the transfer station? Countywide, that's, I mean, based on population.
Without the transfer station.
Yeah.
To do countywide curbside recycling, we actually need a recycle facility with balers.
Okay, all right.
So we're going to have a residue factor anyway from that, so
Yeah,
you're going to end up, you're going to have trash no matter what.
Come back and see us, Joe.
Yeah.
But, you know, citing a site is going to be difficult. And I've made this comment, I may have said it here before, the Guy James property, which is now the MTSU Dairy Farm, was bought at one time by the county to be a landfill. Imagine trying to get 300 garbage trucks in and out of their day. You can't.
It's gonna have to be on a major,
Yes.
like
And we- and
A40 or
actually-
something,
Right,
some major
and it
access.
needs, you know, if it's not on a major highway, it needs to be fairly close to one in an industrial area.
Yeah.
Every place that we talk about and we're looking at is, you know, the city's looking at their growth. Oh, no, that's gonna be, you
That
know,
wasn't
nice
exact-
industrial.
that
Well,
was-
that's what we need.
That wasn't what we were told. We weren't just told no, we were told with the H in front of that no
Yeah.
in two different places.
And
And we're actively looking for it right now.
we thought we'd found a site, and now that the parts distributor is gonna wind up there, so,
O'Reilly's.
yeah.
And they don't even want us to be on the corner there.
I don't want on that corner. That was GE corner, I don't want there.
Yeah.
But we, you know, we need to look at a place that you can get to and from without driving to the middle of town. I hauled a load out of the Rock Crusher Convenience Center Monday, a week ago, to Middle Point landfill. How many traffic lights you think? 27. How many do you think I had to stop at?
25.
6.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't say there's all green. I just stopped at 6.
Yeah.
But it took 40 minutes just to get from Rock Crusher Convenience Center to the landfill.
See, the other thing we need to know too, as far as a waste of energy, to have a client that would use that much energy. I mean, is that a Nissan? Is that a tire manufacturer? I mean, what kind of
Or is it
size?
small?
Yeah, what kind of electricity demand, industrial demand, was it? What kind of client are we looking for?
I don't remember the number now, but there is a formula. X number of tons of municipal solid waste generates this many kilowatts, and I cannot tell you what that number is. But
Okay.
there-
And
there's
we
a
have,
formula
and
for
we've
it.
even looked at different scenarios, even at,
We also looked at large steam users.
Yeah.
Instead of making, just create the steam, you don't need the turbines to make the electricity, just use the steam. When we went to Redstone Arsenal, that's what they do. They use the steam. And there's not that many large steam users. Bridgestone and Laverne. My concern with that is, they've been there for 30 plus 40 years. How long are they gonna stay in that building? So if you build a facility beside it to generate the steam for it, and they close up, move, then what are you gonna do?
Right.
we've looked at the water plant, sewer plant, VA, and a couple other users, but just from the municipal side, that's where we've been looking at, and we've got the electrical stuff from what Darren uses
Yeah.
at both places, so the problem, and when we say 80,000 tons, when you're looking at a refuse-derived fuel type situation, you're basically talking about the household garbage. You're not talking about the mattresses, the tables, the chairs, everything that we pick up, along with everything else, because that's not burnable. They make mattresses, sheetrock. So we have to look at, in fact, Matt was looking at the numbers today, about 39% of his trash he picks up and picked up in April was bulk items. So a lot of the stuff I pick up is bulk items. Crap, I've been picking up and cleaning out the old priest building for the last 6 weeks, getting rid of tables and chairs and just stuff that's been in that building, so before they can make the move to the new one. So it's not all we pick up, it's just not what's in that cart.
So that you're saying that the 80,000 tons doesn't produce, of that, only 39.
Well, 39% of it.
Right, and you asked the question a while ago on yards. Last month's yards was 26,370 cubic yards. Now, compacted trash is what you would use to make fuel source out of it. So that's 7,300 tons, 175 loads. 19,000 tons or 634 loads is open to the top trash that you wouldn't go through that facility unless you had some kind of grinder system and a sorting system and some other things. So a mass burn facility, you're going to take a lot. It's going to take a specific type of trash, not just everything that we have. That makes sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, I'm just thinking.
All right. One more question for me, and then I'll shut up. I've seen some recycling centers in the past where just garbage out of a garbage truck, a curbside garbage truck, they come and they dump on the floor, as I recall, or dump in a bin, and then it's sorted through and goes on various conveyors, and then there's like giant magnets that will pick up metal, and then the variety of different plastics are scanned and kind of split on a conveyor based on the different recycled capabilities of the plastics. And then what's not recycled just kind of goes off on its own, stays on the main conveyor and is ground up or something. Is that what happens? Is that what you kind of envision at a transfer center?
Actually,
recycling?
Well, a true transfer station would be a large building that's elevated to where the tractor trailer truck is beneath floor level.
Yeah.
So one of our trucks would dump out on a concrete floor inside of a building, under a roof, and a lot of that's to keep the rainwater out, and keep the wind from blowing the trash, that type of stuff. And then equipment would just push it off the end into the trailer and then kind of place it. That's a true transfer station.
Okay.
So you just,
Small loads turn into big loads.
right.
Yeah.
Now, we went to Conyers, Georgia 2 years ago. And it's Pratt Industries actually owned it, and they invited us to come down, and they've got a system like you were talking about. It's a massive system, and I don't think they even said how much it cost. But they do all the recycling there. And in addition to that, over in one corner is a transfer station. And that transfer station actually has some trucks come in and dump trash. They try to pick out what, the easy pickings out of it and run through the recycle. And then what they have in their plant that winds up being trash goes to that transfer station. So
It's almost what they call a mixed waste processing facility.
But,
And that's
to
sort of what we
collate-
would do with the,
co-locate those type processes would be a really good idea.
and that's one of the things, when we're, the one thing too that we do not want to, and I emphasize this to everybody else up on the other side too, is that when we're looking for property, we would like to have between 50 and 100 acres. And the reason being is that what we're looking at today, and Mac and I both been in the industry for so long, we have seen the changes. I mean, when I first started, you had trucks that didn't even have cart flippers. They were side barrels, and you'd have to step on a thing that was 3 foot up and dump over your shoulder. Went from rear loaders that didn't have cart flippers to cart flippers, now to doggone just about every truck we get nowadays is automatic because nobody can drive a stick. I mean, I grew up driving a DM Mac with a 9-speed with 2-shift high and low. I got 40 guys over there at the city. I probably got 2 that could even figure out how to do a stick shift. But that's the way the future's going. But also too, we need to be looking at it from another standpoint is the one thing that's everybody keeps talking about is the price of property. And if you cubby hole us on about 25 or 30 acres of land, and we need to have that 50 to 60 because in the future we're going to be looking at more household hazardous waste collections. There's no telling how many times Mac and I both get called, I've got this, I'm moving, or I'm cleaning up because my parents have died and they've got all this stuff. Well, we tell them, you got to wait till November the 7th, or the LSU ball game, or you go to the first week in April, first Saturday in April. That's the only 2 that we have in Rutherford County. They cannot take it anywhere else unless they know where a hazardous waste. So that's just another little thing that we need to be doing for the citizens. Because the other thing is, keep it out of the landfill. Plus, it also keep it out of our transfer station. Because Mac's sort of lucky, but when you have a uric acid reaction in the back of your truck and you have a fire, you get to dump almost 12 tons out there in the middle of the street, and you have to clean it up because our residents got rid of uric acid along with chlorine beads and everything else, and that causes a chemical reaction. And those are very fun, because I just tell them to take it to a cul-de-sac, get it off the main road and dump the load. I mean, that's the only way, because you want to burn down your truck, it's going to take you 6 months to replace.
Wow.
Or do you want to, but those are the things like that that we need to be thinking of in the future, recycling. But you also have to realize recycling is not the godsend, because China has just shut down every import of all recycling for the next 60 days, starting at the, so what's that done is the West Coast is dying. If we start a recycling program curbside in the city of Murfreesboro tomorrow, we're only going to do number 1 and number 2 plastic. We're going to go back to old school like I did when I first started Recycle America. 1 and 2 plastic, that's PET and the HDPE. Look at it as a Coke bottle and a milk jug, and a detergent bottle. Corrugated, newsprint, and white and mixed paper. Steel and aluminum cans, but there will be no glass in there. And I'm even to the point now, because the trash part of the equation, and when Mac said that we're one of the fastest growing cities in the country, and counties in the country, We don't have somebody that's just coming from Lewisburg here. We got them coming from Los Angeles. We got them from Tampa. We got them from Detroit. We got them from Chicago. I had one from Kansas tell me that we do not do that like this in Kansas. And I said, well, Toto is not in Kansas. Toto is in Murfreesboro. And we do it this way.
Tell them how many carts you delivered, you just told me earlier.
Last year in the city of Murfreesboro, from July the 1st till May the 1st of this year, we have delivered 1,473 carts to new residents and businesses.
How many?
1,473. And that's at $53.30 a pop is what it costs, and we tell it's for free. That's not even counting the trucks and the drivers that pick it up.
Between the two solid waste budgets that we're going for, which I've already seen mine, mine is barely over 5 million and his is barely under. So the two solid waste departments collectively is $10 million. And that's just to pick it up and move it. That's no disposal fee for the trash itself.
Do you guys have anything else?
Oh, well, you know, understand that the work very hard to find something, you know, to solve the problem.
What it is.
Another issue we're going to have to tackle, which I'm tackling it on my own so far, is the schools. We've done the calculations, and the average is 30 students generate 1 cubic yard of trash a week. Some schools can do much better than that. Some do much worse. But I've gotten 2 phone calls last week, not this week, but last week, from 2 different schools. One of them is an elementary school that they want to start a classroom breakfast feeding program when school starts. And to do that, they want to go from 2 8-yard containers going twice a week to 3 8-yard containers going 3 times a week. So they're wanting to actually more than double their trash. And I just told them, no. Because the 2 8 yards twice a week is right at the amount of level that puts them at 30 kids generated cubic yard. Had a high school call. They want to add a dumpster. No. They've got 6 dumpsters already. They've got 94 cubic yards of trash a week service. They only need 66. They've got a third more service than they need, and the reason I kind of allow that is football games and that type of stuff. But what I plan to do when school starts back this coming school year is I'm gonna bump that number up to 35. And this is all the trash service you're gonna get. And what I told Mr. Odom, which he's retiring, in a meeting that we had, is my plan is that Rutherford County school system today has all the trash service they're ever gonna get. So when you build that new Rockville school, you take some trash service away from everybody else to have trash service there. He said, yeah, good idea. I don't know if we make that work. Not sure we make it work either, but we need to push a lot harder, you know, because just like those 2 schools, the city of Murfreesboro did it. You know, they got the feeding program to where they feed everybody 3 times a week or 3 times a day. Their trash volume went out the roof because their number's 25 just because of the extra feeding, and they want more service.
Are the schools in your 80,000 tons?
Yes.
You said convenience center and city pickup, but you meant all your hauling and the convenience center.
Right.
Which includes?
How many schools do we have now?
60 total. 13 city, and then the rest of the county. Now, we call it 60. The city calls it, we call it 13 city. They call it 12. Mitchell Nelson Primary and Elementary across the street, that's 2 campuses to us. They've got 1 principal over both of them. That's the difference in it. But their trash service is different.
Fixing to have another one.
Perhaps a new sit down with the new superintendent of schools.
Well, actually, what Mac and I think is going to happen is they're not going to change their tune until we start charging.
Yeah.
Because the days, in fact, when we had a budget review meeting with the mayor, and they were talking about at today's present cost, if I was to charge residents what we do right now, let them charge the brush, the bulk, and the garbage pickup without disposal, costs about $12.50 per home. Per month. So when you add a recycling and you add that cost there, and then you add the haul and disposal, however we're going to do something in the future, the maximum flexibility plan is going to be anywhere between $50 and $75 per ton for the haul and disposal. So I couldn't tell them on the range. I said, won't know that until we figure out where we're going to be taking it.
Right.
And then you'll factor in that. But right now, I'm looking at probably close to about 20 to about 25 starting out when we start charging.
Yeah.
And that's going to be without the, and then, and as we have talked about curbside recycling, we may do a curbside sort, which is even worse, old school, instead of just dump it all in one. Because I want to be able to fry the people that do it wrong.
Well, and the other thing is, once you mix it all together, it costs a lot of money to separate it back out, and you'll never get the commodity value back.
Right.
You know, our convenience centers, when all-in-one stopped picking up, we got world of phone calls. I need to bring my all-in-one cart and dump it. We'll take it if you separate it. No, I'm not going to separate it. Then we're not going to take it. But what do I do with it? You either separate it or you put it in its trash. You know, but we don't take it that way.
Do you actually think you can charge a county school to pick up their trash?
They do it everywhere, Davidson County and everywhere.
What does it gain? It's county tax dollars. We fund their budget.
Well,
They'll add it
You
to
can
their
either do it
budget.
just like we did in
Why not give it to y'all up front?
Now, here's the way you charge it. You're the principal. And principals have a small amount of money that they can spend to do whatever they need to do. Very small. You put their trash bill in that same line item. So you want 3 dumpsters going 3 times a week. Here's what it's going to cost you. You can get by with 2 going twice a week. Here's what it's going to save you. They'll actually save money then to spend it somewhere else. But if you put it in as a line item in the school board budget overall, you're 100% right, it will not change anything.
They don't change nothing nowhere. If they use it to pay you, that little deal, they'll just ask for more for something else to cover it. And they'll add it in the total. That's just my opinion. Y'all a lot smarter than I am.
No, you're right. That's,
You're right.
But I mean, now,
most school districts, like in Atlanta and stuff like that, they have a noise ordinance. When you go and pick up a Norcross and all that, you wanted the school contract because you could go in because they didn't want a garbage truck on their property between after 5 o'clock.
all school kids could be there, yeah.
Right, so we'd go in there and we'd, but it was all bid out to a third party. We picked them all up because you'd sneak off and get the McDonald's here and then you go over and the police come over.
We always do that.
Wait, what you doing over here? Well, we're picking up this school.
The one thing that, Steve mentioned budget, and I really feel sorry for you guys. When I come to bring my budget every year, this year was like a $5 million budget. Y'all saw it when we sat down and looked at it.
Yeah.
And then had to.
We had to make a lot of instant decisions.
Yeah. And not enough time to sit and look at each line item of, Mac, why do you need $25,000 in fuel or whatever? One of these budget amendments was fuel. We were, when the fuel prices were down, we were paying about $15,000 a month for diesel fuel. The bill for this past month was $23,000.
How do you think we feel about sitting and voting on a $400 million budget for the school and we haven't even seen what it's for? But yet we vote on it.
Yeah.
We have to rely on the people that did see it.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know. But anyway, we can adjourn.
Well, yeah, we can, because as vice chairman.
All right.
As
We're gonna use you for once.
As vice chairman.
Well, let's go back to
no further
work.
questions. The meeting is officially adjourned.
Thank you. Did you keep taking notes?